What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Yejide, and if it's your first time stopping by, you are most definitely welcome. So on today's episode, I'm going to be sharing with us how to draft a corset pattern. Now, this is the type of corset pattern that doesn't require you to use a bra cup. You are going to be drafting the padding, the bra padding from the scratch. Now, if you're interested in this, let's get started. So these are the materials I'll be needing: my tape rule, my straight ruler, the curve rule, my pencil, my marker, and also my scissors. So I like to use a separate scissors to cut my pattern paper, so as not to make the one I use in cutting my fabrics blunt. So I just use a separate scissors. So you might want to do the same thing. So now this pattern paper is on fold, as you can see from the center, like so. So right now I'm just going to go ahead to rule my borderline. This borderline will also serve as my shoulder line. So I'm just going to be marking half of an inch across from the beginning of this pattern paper, like so, and I'm going to be ruling this out. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to take my body measurement. So I'm just going to be marking the vertical measurement first. That is my upper bust, which is 10. The upper bust is also known as the bust line. I'm also going to mark the under bust, which is 13, and also the waistline or half length, which is 16. And I'm going to mark this at another position. This is just so as to get a straight line. So I'm going to go ahead to mark the bust line, the under bust, and also the waistline, and I'm just going to rule this out like so. I'm going to connect the points. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to take my shoulder measurement. The shoulder is 14 divided by 2, that is 7. I'll just go ahead to mark 7. And from that point I marked 7, I'm going to come down by half of an inch, and I'm going to be connecting this half of an inch back to the shoulder line. This is going to be my shoulder slope. So now the next thing is the armhole. So for this armhole, I'm going to measure what I have on the shoulder line. I'm going to be measuring what I have on the shoulder line, on the bust line. I don't need this measurement on the bust line, but it's just so as to get a straight line. So after marking 7 inches, I'm going to be coming up from that point by 2 inches. I'll just go ahead to mark 2 inches, and I'm going to be connecting these points back to the shoulder line, like so. So you can get your armhole like this, or you can just divide your bust circumference into 6 and add 1.5 and measure that from the shoulder line. So after doing this, I'm just going to extend this line like so. This new line is going to be my chest line. So now I'm just going to be using my curve rule to make a little curve on my armhole line. So remember that this is the armhole. So now I'll just go ahead to label my rulings. I'm going to be labeling the shoulder line. This is the chest line. I'm labeling it CH, the bust line, and also the under bust, and the last one is the waistline for easy identification. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my nipple to nipple measurement across all the lines. The nipple to nipple is 7 divided by 2, that is 3.5. So I just went ahead to mark 3.5 inches on the chest line, the bust line, the under bust, and also the waistline. So I'm just going to be connecting these points in a straight line. The next thing I'm going to do is to mark what I have from the bust line to the under bust. So from my bust line to the under bust, I have 3 inches. I'm just going to be measuring 3 inches round this part. This is because I want a circle. So now to get a good circle, I'm just going to be making 3 inches points round my cardinal points. I call them cardinal points. So from my bust line, I'm going to be measuring 3 inches like so. I'll come to this other point here. I'm also going to be marking 3 inches. This is just so as to get a good circle. Like I said, this circle doesn't have to be perfect because this is not the bra cup we are going to be using, but it is just a guide. So you still want to you still want to get a good circle at the end of the day. You don't want to mess up your circle because it's going to alter your measurements. So right now, as you can see, what I'm doing is just to mark 3 inches across the 4 points facing the middle of this my bust, this my nipple to nipple measurement on the bust line. So I just went ahead to mark 3 inches like so. So you can do this. This is a very easy way of getting this circle like so. Just watch me, watch closely. So now once I have marked 3 inches round, I'm just going to be connecting those points I marked. I'm going to be connecting them like so in a round form. Remember that we are trying to get a circle, so I'm just going to be connecting all the points like so to give me the circle I want. So this is what it looks like. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to come to the waistline and measure 1 inch on both sides of the nipple to nipple measurement on the waist. So here I'm going to measure 1 inch and the other side also 1 inch. So depending on how big your bust is, if your bust is very small, you can use 0.75 instead of 1 inch. I'll also come to the under bust line on the nipple to nipple measurement and mark the same measurements, 1 inch on both sides of the nipple to nipple measurement. So I'm just going to be connecting this point I've made in a straight line like so. So from the under bust, I'm going to be making a little curve back into the circle. So I'm just going to be using my curve rule like so. I'm going to be connecting this to the bust line like this, in this manner. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to extend the nipple to nipple measurement into the circle. Now I'll come to the top of the circle and mark 1 inch on both sides the top of the circle, and I'm going to be connecting this back into the bust line like so with my curve rule, of course. So now the next thing, I'm going to come to the center of my chest line. This part will determine how the distance between your two cups. So here I'm just going to be marking 1/2 inch so that by the time I open this up, I'm going to have 1 inch. Remember that this part is on fold, the center, and I'm going to be connecting that point to my under bust with my curve rule like so. I'll also be connecting these 2 points on the top of my circle, this one to this. I'm going to be using my curve rule to connect these 2 points, so our cup is taking shape already. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to come to this side of my bust line and extend this circle. You are going to extend this part by 1/2 inch. You don't want the cup to be too small, so I'm just going to extend this by 1/2 inch, and I'm going to be connecting this back to the under bust line like so with my curve rule. I'll also connect this point to my armhole points. I'm going to be doing this. You can do this with a straight ruler, but I'll just use my curve rule here. So for the second side of the top of our circle, I'm just going to make sure that the shape I used for the top of the first circle is what I'm going to use for this other part. So I'll just be connecting these from this point to my armhole like so. So guys, we are done with the cup. The next thing is to take the body measurement. So for the bust is 34 divided by 4, that is 8.5. I'll just go ahead to measure 8.5 on the bust line. So I'll go ahead to measure this same 8.5 on my chest line. So I'm just going to measure 8.5 inches here. Then the under bust is 30 divided by 4, that is 7.5. I'm just going to go ahead to measure 7.5 on the under bust. Then the waist is 28 divided by 4, that is 7. On the waistline, I'm just going to go ahead to measure 7 inches. So I'm just making sure that these marks I've made are very visible. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to take what I've removed in between these cups. I'm going to be placing them back. So on the chest line at the middle we have 1 and just 2 strokes. It is not up to 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to be placing this measurement back on the chest line. So I'm going to go ahead to mark 1 and 2 strokes like so. Then on the bust line, you can see that the cup is full in between. There's nothing removed. So I'm just going to come to the under bust and measure what I have removed here. So here I have 2 inches. I'm going to be adding this back to the measurements. Then the waistline also, I have 2 inches that I've removed in between. I'm going to be adding this back to my measurement. So now guys, this is my normal body measurement. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to add 1.5 inches. This is going to be the sewing allowance. So on the chest line, I'm going to go ahead to mark 1.5 inches. I'm going to mark the same thing on the bust line, the under bust, and also the waistline. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to connect all these in a straight form like this. So I'm just going to be doing this with my ruler. I'm also going to go ahead to rule out the main body measurements without the sewing allowance. Now the next thing I'm going to do is just to make a little curve here. Remember that we are not going to be using makings of the armhole. It was just a guide to get our measurements. So I'll just be connecting these down into my bust line with my curve rule like so. So now guys, we are done with the front pattern. I'll just go ahead to cut it out. So now guys, this is it. This is what it looks like. We are done with the front pattern. Now it is time to cut a back pattern. So I'm just going to go ahead to cut out a piece of pattern paper and place my front pattern on it. So I made sure to leave space at the center and also at the bottom like so. So for this center, this is going to be my zipper allowance. So I just went ahead to mark 2 inches, and I made sure to have 2 inches there rather, and I'm going to be using my pin to pin down the front pattern to the piece of paper I have. So I'm just going to be making sure this is 2 inches for my zipper allowance, and I'm going to be trimming the bottom of this pattern paper like so. So now the next thing is from this first line, I'm going to come down by half of an inch. This is because I don't want the back level to be the same thing as the front. And also for this armhole part, I'm going to make sure I have the same thing here. I'm going to be using my curve rule to measure out the armhole like so. I'll also go ahead to make sure I mark out the dart point like this. And also the center of my nipple to nipple, I'm going to make a point here on the back pattern. So now I'm just going to mark the sides also. And I'll rule out my zipper allowance like this. So the next thing I'm going to do is to remove my paper and mark out all the measurement I've made. So now for this armhole, I'm going to be using my armhole curve like so to connect this point together. You can make this back any shape you want really, so I'll just go ahead to do this because I don't want the back to just be a straight line. And also for these darts, I'm going to first rule out the center, then I'll connect the sides also. So guys, this is it. We are done with the back pattern, so we can cut out the front now. So you just want to make sure you're cutting this the right way so you don't mess up the cups. So the only thing you want to cut out here is the darts we've taken in to form the cups. So guys, this is what the front pattern looks like. I'm just going to go ahead to label this for identification. This is 1 and 2. The center, this is the center, and also this is the side. So I'll just place this aside and I'm going to cut out the back pattern. So I'm just going to go ahead to fold in the zipper. This is the zipper allowance, and also you can decide to fold in the darts before you even cut out your fabric. So this is the darts. I'll just fold this in like so. So guys, this is the front pattern and also the back. So now guys, it is time to cut out the pad in the middle, so you want to do this carefully. So there are different types of pattern. This is the kind of pattern, this is the type of pattern rather, that is, you know, divided in the middle. So just like I said, this is a basic corset pattern, so you can actually modify this corset to whatever type you want. Okay guys, so now we've come to the end of our tutorial. Now guys, trust me, if you're able to draft out this corset pattern that we just drafted, if you're able to draft this out, then trust me, you should be able to draft out the different types of corsets we have. You know, corset with yoke, corset with sleeves, corset with armholes, corset with a basque waistline, any corset at all. So guys, please give this video a big fat thick thumbs up and also hit on the subscribe button down below if you haven't. I'm going to see you all in my next video. Bye.